One Sunday morning, I rolled over to look at Rose, my wife of 5 years. Rose pulled my head towards hers and gave me a gentle kiss as she woke up as well. Rose acknowledged that she was tired and said that I had exhausted her the night before. I told her that I was trying to conceive her. She put her arms around me reassuringly, telling me to wait and that I would make her pregnant. As always, we chatted while lying in bed. Rose was focused on getting promoted to the role of regional sales manager during our talk about her career. We had the routine conversation about work for a few minutes, and then I advised she take a shower and Rose that I take one. She was on board with my plan to dash outside and get one of my specialty coffees. I turned around as I was about to exit because I realized I had left my car keys behind. I noticed Rose's pocketbook on the kitchen counter and knew she carried a key to my car in case of need. I made the decision to get the key out of her purse rather than head back upstairs. I felt around in the mess and found an inside zip. When I opened the compartment, I discovered the birth control pills Rose had said she would no longer take. While we were attempting to start a family, she had stopped taking birth control a few months prior. Upon closer inspection, I discovered that 1/3 of the pills were absent. I turned it over and realized that she was still on birth control because the prescription label had a date of only a few weeks ago. Rearranging everything as I had found it, I slipped upstairs to retrieve my keys in silence. As I headed to grab Rose's coffee, my mind was racing with ideas without her knowing. Why she would lie to me about not being on birth control was beyond me. She was with me while she wasn't at work, so I knew she wasn't having an affair. Her husband was also my best buddy, so that was the only factor other from her close girlfriend. With the exception of work hours, I felt as though I knew almost always where she was. I was lost in my thoughts, feeling deeply let down and thinking that even though she appeared to be trying, she wasn't interested in having children. At about 4 p.m., Rose jolted me out of my daydream by seeing how aloof I was being. We were going to be late for Bill and Sherry's supper, so she urged me to get ready, and afterwards Bill had asked her to help him in his shop. Bill noticed something was wrong when he arrived and inquired about it. I told him there was nothing wrong at first, but he maintained he knew me better than I did. He insisted that I voice my worries. With hesitation, I revealed what I had found out. Rose had stopped taking the medication a few months prior. We spoke about possible explanations for her behavior. Bill reassured me that Rose wasn't having an affair when he brought up the possibility of hiring a private investigator, highlighting my emotional condition and the fact that only a few hours had gone. He said, "If you're so sure she isn't, what are you afraid of? Hire a PI. Once he confirms she's not involved with someone else, you can talk to her about kids and maybe better understand why she lied about taking the pill." On Monday morning, I hired a private investigator, a specialist our company uses for security-related issues and other concerns. I questioned him about providing evidence. Following our chat, the PI gave me the reassurance that, based on the evidence, Rose doesn't appear to be having an affair. I told him I would check on her when she was working and when she wasn't. I also mentioned that it was important to review her medical records because unforeseen problems sometimes arise in women. The PI checked in with me on a regular basis, but I never heard anything noteworthy. I could never get close to Rose, no matter how hard I tried to hide my feelings. At last, on Saturday, Rose came up to me and asked me to explain why I had avoided her. In an attempt to place the blame elsewhere, I charged that she wasn't interested in intimacy, which led to our first big dispute and fight. Bill told me that Rose would think something was wrong unless I adjusted my behavior right away when I confided in him about it. I acted out of fear, taking Bill's advice to heart and humbly asking for pardon. Rose seemed perplexed and suddenly worried, which made me wonder whether this was Rose's first time in an affair. I was having a hard time staying sane as the days went by. Bill was a major factor in my ability to maintain my optimism and focus. I started to consider Rose's forthcoming 25th birthday in the middle of the third week and wanted to organize something special. Inspired by Sherry, Bill's wife, I chose to throw a half-century birthday party complete with a halved walking cane and other unique decorations, I thought our appointment with the PI on Thursday morning would run no longer than 30 minutes, but we ended up speaking for more than 2 hours. I remained there in a fog till the PI left, and the phone rang. Bill called me once he learned that I had met with the PI, and we set up a meeting. I was on my third drink at the bar when Bill came over to join me. I wanted a big drink. Bill looked at me and said, "This isn't good, is it?" The shock was wearing off and was replaced with a fury. I briefed Bill on the summary of the PI's findings as I pushed the folder over for him to look over. Bill looked at the photos that had dates and times on them and asked about the CD that was in the folder. I clarified that the video showed Rose and her supervisor going through a relationship-building process. I should view the video and, more importantly, pay attention to the discussion, the PI had said. Bill called his wife, pretending to be organizing Rose's birthday celebration, and told her to take her to the movies or the mall. Sherry obliged, excited to help arrange a surprise that would make Rose happy. I started crying as Bill and I listened to the CD. The PI was right. What really caught me off guard was Rose's reason for hanging out with her employer. She had been talking about the promotion for months. We asked each other, in silence, if we wanted another drink. After a while, I confided in Bill, telling him that I believed I could manage it if Rose had come to me and admitted to falling for her boss or to seeking more fulfillment than she was receiving from me. I knew I would be disappointed and wounded, but I was more than hurt by the thought of seeing my wife with her boss in order to get a promotion. I made it plain that Rose would experience the full brunt of my rage and that I was not just hurt, but also incensed. Bill then said that it was like seeing Rose physically present but emotionally absent when he watched her with her boss. Nevertheless, he pointed out, she had chosen to put her career ahead of our marriage, and she would now have to live with that decision. Bill asked me what I was going to do after telling me the girls will be home shortly while he was passing me my drink. In response, I said I thought I knew what to do. I continued, looking up at Bill, telling him that Rose's birthday was the following Monday, and I was going to make sure she had an unforgettable surprise birthday celebration. I acknowledged that I had to move quickly, and I said I would need Bill's assistance. If that was okay with him, I also suggested adding Cher. Bill concurred, telling me that Sherry was close to Rose and that she wouldn't do anything to harm her. He made it clear that Sherry wouldn't be participating for that reason, but he also pointed out that Sherry knew who to invite. Thus, my attendance at the party would be crucial to the success of his plan. When the girls came home the following workday, I managed to avoid Rose by seeming to be more drunk than I actually was. I discussed my needs for images and a video with a computer-savvy coworker in the shipping division who promised me he could make them quickly. I told Sherry over the phone that I wanted the party to be a surprise, but that I planned to use her idea. My recommendation was to have it on Sunday at approximately 3:00 p.m. and requested her help. Sherry agreed wholeheartedly. I told her to get in touch with everyone for the party and that she would have to get Rose out of the house for a couple of hours on Sunday. We hung up, and I promised her I would let Rose's parents know. Rose informed me she couldn't have lunch because she had a meeting, so I went over to her place of employment and asked her to join me. That was okay, as I had gone there to invite her employer to her birthday celebration. I told him I was throwing her a surprise birthday party and said it would be wonderful if he could come. I said that he should bring his wife and that it would be a great get-together. I said I really hoped he could make it and asked if he could park at the elementary school. Rose wouldn't be able to see all the cars when her friend brought her home in this manner. I stressed that it would be a wonderful affair and indicated that a buddy of mine would be escorting the visitors from the school to my house. I ended by wishing for him to be able to make it. I then went to Rose's parents' house after work and shared my birthday party idea with them. Rose's mother collected a few photos of Rose from her infancy to our nuptials. I went to the computer guy's residence later that evening. I offered him my vision for the evening and showed him everything I owned. He remained silent, but after hearing me out, he offered an alternative that would affect everyone more profoundly. He offered several suggestions that I found appealing, and when I accepted them, he promised to finish and have it ready for me by Saturday. I went to a lawyer's office on Wednesday and filed for divorce, citing adultery as the cause. The lawyer also expressed confidence in getting Rose's firm to pay her and advised taking legal action against her supervisor and the company they work for. Bill was seated across the table from me on Friday night. "When you think things can't get worse, they always seem to find a way to get worse," I said. Bill inquired as to what I meant in return. I went to meet the lawyer on Wednesday, and I ended up staying longer than I had anticipated. I was so focused on my marital issues when I left the lawyer's office that I neglected to return to work and submit my offer for a job. I was suspended without pay for 30 days today since the company lost out on the job. I would have been fired if it weren't for my supervisor, who is aware that my marriage is failing. But in order for me to get my sanity restored, my boss needs me to stay far away from Rose and this disaster. He told me I had to be in Mexico by Wednesday if I wanted to keep my job, and he gave me his timeshare that he owns there. Bill asked if I planned to go. In response, I said that I could not afford to lose this position. I proposed that we move on with talking about the specifics and possible outcomes of Rose's surprise birthday celebration. I gave an explanation of how the photos would be arranged and my expectations for the evening. I wanted Rose's boss to see the entire performance, so Bill's job was to make sure he didn't leave once I started the picture event. I also informed Bill that Rose's divorce papers and her boss's papers would be served by the actor portraying the barman. When I got home, Rose was furious and wanted to know where I had been. I clarified that I was in Bill's company. She waved it off, declaring it to be insignificant. She disagreed, saying that since I wasn't there and she had come home early with exciting news, it was a huge deal. Rose said that I appeared to have a girlfriend and accused me of drinking too much and avoiding people. Anger caused my face to flush. Rose looked concerned by my response. How could she be so interested with her employer to pursue a job promotion that she could accuse me of having a girlfriend? I was about to snap, but then I heard Bill's voice again, and I apologized, told him I didn't have a girlfriend, and asked him what the good news was. She announced with great joy that she had been promoted to regional sales manager, effective next month. Rose surprised me again when I thought she couldn't, bouncing up and down and running into my arms to give me a tight hug. I pushed Rose back to arm's length and asked her what she meant when... She said, "Now we'll get that baby we want," her arms still wrapped around me and embracing me. Rose quickly tucked herself back into my chest and said, "It seems like we're starting to get lucky," as though something was going our way. She told me about her promotion and boldly declared her love, expecting me to be the one to conceive her. After that, she turned to face me and asked if I still wanted a child. Rose saw the tears welling up in my eyes and assumed they were due to the baby, but the real reason was that I was about to lose the only woman I had ever truly been in love with. Rose took me by the hand and ushered me into her bedroom. We reached our joint climax. On Saturday morning, Rose asked to be close again, and I obliged, albeit my participation was merely ceremonial. Rose came in while I was in the shower, looking worried, and asked if there was anything on my mind. She expressed amazement that she had not been able to outshine me at making love lately. I urged her not to rule out the idea that something might be amiss in return. I brought up my changed behavior in the last 2 weeks, as well as my binge drinking. I quickly changed the topic and said that I felt guilty about our inability to get pregnant, implying that there might be a problem with my body. Since she had been off the pill for a few months, I suggested that she get medical advice. "Maybe there's something wrong with my body, and I should see a doctor. After all, you have been off the pill for several months, right?" I said, looking at her. Rose grabbed hold of me and, without answering directly, gave me a serious self-talk, stressing that I was putting too much pressure on myself. She added that she will be more at ease now that she has received a promotion at work. She just doesn't know how to describe it, but she knows that I'll knock her out very soon. You could probably explain it if you wanted to, I thought to myself. Rose wanted to make love again on Saturday night, and I wanted to too. I gave it everything I had because it would be our last time together, but I think she knew that I was merely making love to her. There wasn't really much lovemaking on my end. When Sunday morning finally arrived, I wasn't as anxious as I had anticipated. I called Cher while Rose was in the shower, asking her if she had any ideas about how to get Rose out of the house. Sherry gave me her word that she did, saying she was proud of me for throwing Rose this celebration because she knew she would always remember it. I almost laughed, figuring she would remember this for a long time. As she came downstairs, I asked her what she had planned. "Why?" she inquired. Rose said, "Great," as Cher prepared breakfast for the four of us and assisted her in selecting bedroom draperies. I explained, Bill had called needing my help with Cher's honey-do list, with everyone yelling, "Surprise!" At 3:10, Sherry trailed Rose into our home. Rose greeted me with a big hug and expressed her gratitude because she didn't know about the birthday celebration. I heard Rose ask Sherry if she had invited her boss as I glanced over the attendees. Rose's anxious expression reappeared when she received a negative reaction from Sherry. The celebration began with laughter and socializing after my two essential people were in position. I waited for nearly 2 hours to make sure everyone had plenty of food, mostly alcohol. Bill helped us collect everyone in the living room so we could get ready for the year's biggest concert. I greeted everyone, thanked them for coming, and proposed that we look at the first half of Rose's 50th birthday before we open the cards and presents. I waved everyone to a seat, grinning at Rose's parents, her cousin, and her boss and his wife. After everyone had settled in, excitement grew throughout the room as they realized what the party's theme was. I turned on the laptop and the TV and said, "Here we go." The first image showed a naked 2-month-old Rose laying on the bed. Whistles and jeers followed my remark, pointing out her attractive place. Rose reddened deeply as more images slowly flickered across the screen. I made jokes or laughed about each image, sometimes asking her mother for advice, so there were funny moments from elementary school to high school. I emphasized Rose's steadfast drive. Her college photos showed off her tenacity, which included snagging me. Rose was enjoying the entertainment as laughter reverberated. After our wedding photo, everyone commented on my long hair. After Rose's desk was shown, a picture of her workplace, which she had obtained by being the top salesperson, appears. The second photo was taken at the Moss party, with Rose's employer and his wife seated at our table. With me not there, Rose was seated next to her supervisor and another employee. Rose looked at her employer, who had also lost his smile, and her smile turned into a frightened one. I thought they were exchanging looks. I conveyed my hope that Rose's supervisor will recognize her commitment and diligence and help her land the much sought-after role of regional sales manager. When I was done, I turned to face Rose and felt scared because she had told me about her promotion. I began the film by highlighting Rose's diligence in preparing for her new role. Everyone, more photos. In the video, Rose was seen informing her boss that this was the last time they would do anything like that while the bed was vacant. The scene changed to Rose lying on her bed with her boss nestled between her legs. Her supervisor also pushed her to do specific things in order to be considered for the promotion. The film then quickly cut to show Rose on her hands and knees with her boss behind her, gripping her hip, in a certain relationship process position. This caused gasps and some people to leave. Her supervisor was pleased with her work during the transfer and said that she would be moving up to vice president. There were about 15 seconds remaining in the movie, showing 2 more spots when anarchy broke out. Rose cried out in a fit of rage and begged me to turn it off. Her employer tried to run quickly, but my friend Bill told him to stay where he was. Bill gave her boss a punch to the jaw, stopping him cold when he attempted to move past. The boss's name was yelled by my ally, and when the idiot replied, he got served with legal papers thrown in his lap. In her attempt to comfort Rose, Sherry failed to notice the boss's wife coming and grabbing her by the hair. Sherry fell on the couch where they were sitting when she shoved her. Sherry yanked Rose's arm as she collapsed, making her turn to taunt my wife and the boss's wife. Rose took a right hook to the cheekbone from the boss's wife. Rose was thrown backward and came to rest on her side. Sherry jumped up and seized the boss's wife, yelling. Bill moved quickly to get to the women, and he caught Sherry before she fell to the ground as she was shoved again. I rushed to help, but I believed that the worst was done because Rose was on the ground and Bill was holding Sherry. The boss woman pivoted, glaring at Rose and slinging barbs. Rose, who was now on her hands and knees, carefully raised her knee and tried to rise by reaching over to put her hand on the ottoman. Rose attempted to get up, but the punch had left her head spinning. With her legs spaced approximately a foot apart, she turned to face the boss lady. To help Rose up and make sure she didn't get attacked again, I went to her. Glancing over to see where the boss lady was, I noticed that she had taken a stride in the direction of my wife. Then she kicked Rose firmly between her legs, much like an NFL punter. Rose's whole body shook as soon as I placed my hand on her arm. The boss lady could have punted the football 40 yards with ease if she had been playing punt. Rose's body moved forward 3 feet and upward 2 feet. Rose screamed louder than I had ever heard before. She landed on her side, rebounding off the ottoman and landing on top of it. From the moment Rose was kicked until she eventually touched the carpet, she cried out in pain. Rose started screaming harder than I had ever heard someone cry as soon as she got on the carpet, her knees up to her chest and her hands between her legs. Bill grabbed the boss lady by the nape of her neck, yanking her from the house, and told her to go with her husband. The boss lady yelled that a certain situation wouldn't result in a promotion as Bill pushed her out. Sherry rushed over now, crouching to help Rose while yelling at me to move aside. I ignored Sherry and walked over to Rose's side to reassure her that I hadn't meant for anyone to hurt her. I'm positive Rose didn't hear me since she was in so much pain. Then I noticed blood leaking into her cotton trousers as I looked down. I grabbed Sherry and pointed at the blood to urge her to notice. Sherry advised me to call for an ambulance right away. I took my car instead of riding in the ambulance with Rose. Neither this physical attack nor my desire to see Rose harmed physically were in my plans. Right now, I had no idea what I was going to do. The emergency doctor came to talk to Bill, Sherry, and myself in the waiting area. He told me that as soon as the specialist arrived, Rose would be having surgery. When he inquired about what had happened, I informed him that another woman had kicked her in the groin. He asked me a few more questions, and I responded no when he asked whether I wanted to see her. The operating doctor came up to me a few hours later with an update. They said they had never seen an injury like this, going on to explain that the power of the hit had caused the tissue to burst into 3 directions at the base of her love button. The physician acknowledged that everything had been fixed, but she still had concerns about her love button. They implied that it might affect her ability to make love if it didn't mend on its own. "Yuli, I wanted to know more information," the physician said. The doctor said she would be in recovery for a few hours, and then I could visit her. That the love button area plays a role in stimulating women during lovemaking, contributing to enjoyment, and aiding in achieving pleasure peaks, they said, expressing concern that if the area didn't heal properly, it could make it difficult, if not impossible, for her to experience thrills. Bill stayed at the hospital with Sherry and left a few minutes later. We had a supper together, talked for a while, then I left to go home. Cher called me at around 10 a.m. on Monday to ask when I would be seeing Rose. I was unsure, maybe tomorrow. I gave up and turned off my phone when Sherry persisted. I went into Rose's room on Tuesday shortly after lunch. Before Rose could say anything, Cher shot me a cold glare, and I moved to the side of her bed. I started out by explaining. Admittedly, I wanted everyone to know that it was she and not me who had brought our marriage to an end, so I set out to make her feel as bad as possible. I called her out for being unfaithful and lied about not using birth control. I was furious, but I also made it clear that I didn't want her to suffer any bodily harm. I made it clear that, even though I was really angry, I had never considered physically harming her. I said I hoped she would take me seriously. Rose's face was so full of tears that I turned to walk away, but Rose stretched out and took hold of my hand, urging me not to leave. Rose gave me her word that she didn't think I would hurt her physically. I told her I couldn't stay and talk to her, despite her entreaties. I clarified that I made a big error at work because of the emotional chaos brought on by her infidelity, which left my heart and mind in disorder. The business executives were thinking about sacking me, but my supervisor, who was aware of our marital issues, stepped in and stopped them. That's why I told Rose I was going to be out of town for a month. I am, however, once more subject to disciplinary action, With the help of my manager, I was placed on paid leave for a 30-day suspension. I have 1 month to sort out my ideas and deal with our issues. In addition to allowing me to cash out the 3 weeks of wasted vacation, my boss has offered me his timeshare in Mexico. Sherry cried out that Rose needed me and I couldn't leave her. I told Sherry that I could go, that I couldn't risk losing my work, and I glanced at her. I said I had a fantastic instructor, and I pointed to Rose as the one who had taught me to put work before marriage. Rose interrupted with haste and apologized. Speaking to Rose, let me add one more thing. I'm not done with your boss yet. I promise you that a storm is coming for that moron, and that I will make him pay for this. It is not my aim to cause you any harm. This is what I'm telling you, because I think he'll use you as a prop to rescue himself. All party debris has been removed, and the house has been thoroughly cleaned. You'll discover divorce papers to sign and materials from the PI on the kitchen table. Speaking of divorce papers, I felt Rose give me a strong squeeze in the hopes that I wouldn't be able to resist the tears that started to fall again. Rose, I left that information for you, not to hurt you anymore, but in case you may use it to defend yourself against your boss. I believe, and I hope, that you find a capable attorney. Rose, I have to leave because I have to catch an aircraft. Rose stated that she needed to talk to me in depth before signing the divorce papers. She still didn't understand, I told her, shaking my head. I emphasized that I didn't need to do anything for her and declared that she was no longer in charge. Withdrawing my hand, I continued. She messed that up as I turned to go. Rose yelled, begging me to hold off. Tears were running down her face when I paused and turned to face her. Rose told me how much she loved me. She requested if I would kindly meet with her when I got back. That's when I have to say no, Rose. Just to be here with you hurts too much. Maybe when I return, my perspective will change. Bill was waiting for me outside the hospital to drive me to the airport. Since Bill already knew most of the background to the events and my plan regarding Rose's boss, the travel was uneventful. He promised to let me know if anything happened with Rose's supervisor, as I had instructed. Bill also promised to keep us updated on Rose's circumstances. I was curious, so I asked him why I would want him to keep me informed. Bill laughed and said, saying I still loved her, to which I laughed back. Although I acknowledged my love for her, I made it clear that I wouldn't let anyone treat me poorly. Music. Second story. After learning that my 5-year-old son is not biologically mine, I am currently 32 years old and going through a divorce from my 33-year-old wife. Discovered my wife's 6-year-old infidelity a few weeks ago. This information was revealed by her sister when they were visiting to talk about the birth of her first child. 6 years ago, when she was drunk, my wife confessed to having an affair with her best friend and expressed regret, according to her sister. Fearing the worst, I did a paternity test with my son as soon as I found out. A week later, the results showed that my son is not my biological child. Unexpectedly, I started to view the youngster less as a son and more as a friend. I went to my wife at night while the child was sleeping, armed with evidence. She would probably connect the connections to her sister, but I insisted that it was none of her business, even though she asked who told me. Despite her repeated assurances that nothing had transpired with anyone else since then, and her vows of being faithful in body and soul, she was distraught when divorce proceedings were started. To keep things simple during the divorce, I didn't disrespect her. She threatened to claim complete custody of the child, despite my incredulity and my tendency to place the blame for our chat on the drinks rather than on myself. I was so annoyed that I said I didn't care about anything that wasn't biologically mine, so she could take the child and I could keep our 2 dogs. She claimed that I am the child's father and tried to persuade me to co-parent. I lost my cool and screamed, calling her an idiot and telling her to go take her child with her. It's been a week since the incident. I'm at my parents' house, which they gave me as a gift. She took the child to her parents' house and hasn't gotten in touch with me since. My dad thinks I made the proper choice in not dating someone who is not related to me. Thus, both of them back my choice. Emotional anguish endures even though I see a therapist 3 times a week, who reassures me that the first step is to let go of what hurts. My brother advised that I write here as a diversion, feeling guilty about seeing me happy with my son, even though I knew he might not be mine. My sister-in-law revealed everything. When we visited her, it was a moment of weakness that led to the revelation, and she broke down in shame, along with intense loathing for my wife. I also experienced mixed emotions of hurt and contempt towards the child. Nevertheless, I'm resolved to keep going. We have different assets and finances, so I hope the divorce goes well. My lawyer says that my proof of the child's paternity should be sufficient in any legal proceeding should she request child support. My therapist emphasizes that I should put my own needs first and suggests that I avoid seeing the wife or the child. Acknowledging that the child is no longer under my care is essential to my emotional healing. Update. Not much noteworthy has happened, but this is a quick rundown. My ex came to my house 3 days after I posted and asked to come in. I walked outside to greet her and made it clear that she wouldn't enter my home while I was there. She ought to be at the door if she had anything to say. She acknowledged my right to cut off all communication and virtually begged me to take her son back. She acknowledged that she deserved it, but said that having a child by herself would interfere with her goal of becoming a public records notary. It will take her 2 years to pursue her notary ambition of applying for a post in the judiciary. I made a calm effort to explain that my therapist had advised ending all communication with them, and I politely asked her to go so I wouldn't lose my cool. I will not throw my fury at an innocent person, especially one that was caused by her acts, even though I adore the child. I said this in a somewhat irate manner, but I didn't say anything louder because we were outside, stressing that the child should have better and that she is currently in charge of giving it to her. Later, we continued our conversation. We were on the street, and she respects other people's opinions, so she fought the impulse to cry or cause a scene. She only begged to be able to see the pets as her final request. I said no, thinking it would be best if they grew accustomed to her being gone. They would only become ecstatic upon seeing her after all this time. She nodded and walked away after that. She phoned me 2 days after I gave her the divorce papers. I answered incorrectly, and after ranting for approximately 30 minutes, I told her to get in touch with my civil lawyer if she had any further questions. Then I turned off her phone. She hasn't attempted to phone or visit my residence. I offered going out with a friend from my master's program that same day. We've been going out ever since she said yes. Eventually, last Friday, I suggested that we become an exclusive relationship, and she agreed. She is accustomed to and adores my pets, having spent several nights here already. I'm grateful for this because I couldn't begin a relationship with someone who wouldn't let my dogs. Right now, we're taking it easy. She respects my decision and is aware of the drama I am having with my ex and the child. She inquired as to whether or not I would ever speak to the youngster again. I told her that I didn't expect it to affect my life in the future, but perhaps when he's old enough to comprehend my choices. She gave a nod, appreciative that I put myself first during this procedure. This is a synopsis of what transpired these days, so maybe it took a little longer than I anticipated. Update. I'm officially divorced now, to put it simply. When there are no children, joint assets, or shared finances, the simplified divorce procedure in my nation is known as a quick divorce. This kind of divorce happens at the local level instead of going via the legal channels, wherein reconciliation, asset division, and other procedures are usually covered. Our shared son was the only issue, as you could have imagined. The paternity test issue surfaced, proving that the child is not mine, and my name was successfully struck from his birth certificate, leaving him with the last names of both of his mothers. To say that the divorce process is difficult to describe would be an understatement. My former spouse made several attempts to take advantage of our child's mental illness in an effort to entice me back, but remembering everything that happened kept me on task. I am grateful to my current partner for their unwavering support. Even though I know it's not my fault, hearing it directly from her was still beneficial to me. Following several conversations with our attorneys, I suggested paying half of a nanny's salary to watch her son while she puts her life back on track. Luckily, she consented to pay for the rest of the costs herself. She consented when I made it obvious that I wouldn't be looking after her son. Given her commitment to her career, it appears that she was rather taken aback by the idea of becoming a single mother. I asked her if she had spoken to the child's father out of curiosity. They couldn't seem to get along, despite her best efforts, and even her father's house, where he spent 2 weeks living with them. After a few weeks, she had to step in to stop them from yelling at each other, and he moved out of her house. She's a nice-looking woman with a decent career and figure, despite her sadness. She has a full year to find her son a good stepfather with the help of a nanny. I don't intend to speak with him in the interim. Maybe when he's a teenager, or in a few years. I will not press the child to talk to me if he doesn't want to, and I will accept if he is harboring resentment. She became angry with me when we talked about the child, especially because I had a new partner. I quickly thought it was impolite, especially because my current partner was there and I had to break up their fight. She couldn't take it, even though she acknowledged my assistance and signed the divorce papers. I had an understanding manner the entire time we spoke. My appearance seems to annoy and bother her, as she has always been a proud person who has accomplished everything on her own merit. I explained that it was the same appearance as usual. Her paranoia is her problem, not mine to solve. What matters is that she signed the documents, allowing me to at last move on with my life. I'll pay half the nanny's minimum wage for a year. It's a fair price for peace of mind. Even though I felt bad about it, I accepted it and went on. Yes, I still have feelings for her from this month, but not enough to tell her so outright or wish her bad. She already has too many issues to handle. I am grateful that my present spouse has put up with all of this. I've told her on multiple occasions that she doesn't need to go with me or worry about it, but she won't let go of the feeling that my problems are her problems as well, so I shouldn't bear the weight alone. It has made a huge difference in easing my load. She is also aware of my hesitation to tie the knot this year, or perhaps the following, and I'm grateful for her understanding. At least I won't have any lasting effects from this chapter of my life coming to an end. Story number 3. Having spent 20 years together, 16 years married, and 3 children raised. Discovered her affair through message reading and phone hacking. She started, then ended, an affair with a co-worker while trying to save our marriage. She moved out in November 2018 after filing for an unsuccessful divorce, and she quickly started seeing her affair partner again. Her divorce was finalized in December 2019, and up until this past week, she was still living with her lover. My ex called me in tears, asking if I could stay overnight with the kids. I worried and asked what was wrong. Sensing something, she responded that karma had struck her hard. Similar to how I found out about her affair, she searched through her partner's phone while he was taking a shower and found a long series of sexual Facebook messages. The 52-year-old ex of mine, who is 39, is having an affair with a married 28-year-old. Don't get me wrong, as things started to happen, I wanted to rejoice. I told her right away that the man was a beast of prey. I felt bad for her, though, since after hearing her out, I saw that she was truly in love with him. Ironically, she expressed regret for the hurt I suffered and apologized more for her actions that day than she had ever done before. Taking that with a grain of salt, I've moved on and discovered happiness in the past 6 months with someone else. Update. My ex caught the affair partner, AP, before they could set up a rendezvous, but there was almost another episode of infidelity. She has total control over his phone. She continuously checks his texts and keeps an eye on all of his apps. To me, it sounds like a nightmare. The AP and my ex-partner continue to have an odd, sporadic interaction. Permit me to elaborate on it. She claims that officially they are not together. Their Facebook profiles both indicate that they are single. She wears his engagement ring from time to time, and unlike my $112,000 wedding band, which she refused to return, I'm very confident she would return it. Though she says they only hang out as friends, she occasionally stays at his flat. Why? Because let's face it, don't we all spend the night hanging out and sleeping on our ex's bed? She still makes me laugh because she believes that everyone is so naive. Due to her close association with the plant manager at her former employment, she was forced to move jobs in the meantime. They would frequently converse, go out to lunch, ride Harleys, take walks during breaks, and so on. When rumors began to spread, everything became chaotic. Her co-worker is married and has 3 children. He still makes occasional visits to her, taking her out for a Harley ride, to the movies or whatever. It seems that our teenage son saw her in the driveway staring at someone. Our son called me to inquire who this guy was because he didn't know. I pretended to be stupid and instructed him to ask his mother who it was. He had only been over the day before, grilling out and mowing her lawn, so he assumed she and the AP were still together. Another new guy shows in, but she won't say where or how she met him. She didn't appear into him on their 2 dates. They had worked together before, and he was often talking about how much he missed her old acquaintances and colleagues. The other day, retirement was on our minds. She is aware that in 6 years, when I finish paying child support and my children are all 18, I intend to go semi-retired. I'm moving down south where it's warmer. She told me a heartbreaking tale about how she had to raise all of our kids while I developed a company, and that she would most likely have to work until the day she dies without ever being able to retire. That is really not the case. I contributed the same amount of time, chores, and energy to our family as she did. While she was out partying 4 or 5 nights a week with her friends, I did even more than her for a few years. Her facial reaction was amazing to witness when I told her, "You made your choice to leave me and go with your AP." Her retirement plan was me. She is in her early 40s and currently has an incredible $14,000 saved for retirement in her 401k. Even in the event that she stays, returns, or does anything else with her AP, he makes a living wage, has no savings, a meager retirement, and neither a window nor a pot to urinate out of. Thus, some karma is involved. I would want to share this thinking with all of you who are divorcing or about to divorce. My life was completely destroyed from October 2018 till our divorce was finalized in December 2019. In a few years, I'm in a better place than I've ever been. My goal is to take an early retirement and spend time at the beach. There has never been a finer or stronger bond between myself and my children. Be a nice person even in the face of such gloom and horror. Don't try to be mean or put the kids in the way of you, him, her, or Dar. Don't lie or mislead. Walk on with your head held high. Your life will be better the further you can move away from the gloom. Friends, keep going strong. You're capable of this.